It's the Poojie Podcast, proudly sponsored by Cimarron Golf Club. What is going on, Pooj Crew? Thank you for being here for the Poojie Podcast. Quick episode for you today, and quite frankly, about a sport that many of you guys might not actually care about, which is your fault, not mine. But I want to tell you something pretty crazy. There's an athlete out there right now that is having maybe the most dominant year of any athlete we've ever seen in any sport, and no one's talking about it, to be honest, because it's not necessarily a sport that you think many people would talk about. There's a very niche fan base for this sport, and that sport is NASCAR, and that athlete is Kyle Larson. Now, a quick backstory on Kyle Larson. Obviously a young driver. He might not be as well known as many of the other drivers are, such as Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and so on. But Kyle Larson, a younger guy, he has 10 career NASCAR wins. So he is actually a pretty good driver. Not even a pretty good driver, a fantastic driver. Funny backstory on Kyle Larson, actually, when COVID hit a year and a half ago or so, he was doing an iRacing event, and he was actually suspended from NASCAR, fired from Chip Ganassi Racing for the use of the N-word in April of 2020 during an iRacing game that was going on. I think it may have been on Twitch or a live streaming service. So he loses his sponsorships, loses his race team. He is no longer allowed to race for the 2020 season. As we all know, NASCAR was one of the first sports to actually come back into the fold during quarantine, during COVID. But he was reinstated in October of 2020, and he could officially race again in January of 2021. Well, lucky for him, there was an opening on one of the most dominant racing teams in American sports history, or American NASCAR history, and that is Hendrick Motorsports. He joined in with the number 5 car. Now, Hendrick Motorsports has the drivers like Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, and so on from there. There's a lot of great HMS drivers out there, and Kyle Larson is one of those. But this season has been an unprecedented season for Kyle Larson. Let me go through this real quick for you, and I think this is unbelievable. No one's actually talking about it. Over the last 9 races, including the All-Star race, Kyle Larson has 8 top 2 finishes. In his only race where he did not finish in the top 2, he was leading on the last turn of the race in the first race in Pocono this past weekend on Saturday, crashes and finishes 9th. That's just how close to the end he was. Would have been his 5th consecutive victory in a row. Here's kind of how those wins went. I mean, again, this guy was suspended. He comes back into Hendrick Motorsports, races the beginning of the year, gets a win early in the year, finishes top 2 few weeks later, but then most recently goes second, 3 races in a row at Darlington, Dover, and then Austin at the American Circuit, the road course where you might see F1 being raced in America. But then he wins at Charlotte, wins at Sonoma, and wins the All-Star race in Texas, all in 3 consecutive weeks. Not only that, the very next week, the first race in Nashville in 37 years, he ends up winning. That's his 10th career win, his 5th win of the season, which is pretty crazy. That's Kevin Harvick-like numbers from 2020. So 7 straight top 2s, now not 8 of 9 straight top 2s, and that one not top 2 was a crash. He blew a tire on the final turn to miss winning 5 in a row. I think this is crazy. If this was another sport, let's say this was Giancarlo Stanton hitting a home run in 9 or 10 consecutive games, whatever the case is, maybe it's 2 straight no-hitters pitched by a pitcher. I mean, that's just how dominant this guy has been this year, and his crew chief, Cliff Daniels, a lot of credit to him as well. But no one's talking about him. He won $1 million in prize money at the All-Star race. Then this past weekend in Pocono, the first race of the weekend on Saturday, I think it was 130, 125 laps. He ends up crashing, finishes 9th. Well, then the second race, the running order going into the final 2 laps was William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Kyle Larson. And pretty much what happened, Hamlin and Byron end up pitting. Kyle Busch wins the race, which is another crazy story in itself. Kyle Busch having car issues the whole day. And then Kyle Larson finishes 2nd after starting like 20th, and he wasn't higher than 5th the whole race. And then he just ends up finding a way to win that race. Alex Bowman, another Hendrick Motorsport driver, actually won the first race on Saturday. So it's pretty interesting. Hendrick Motorsports has won like 6 of the last 7 races. They have drivers all over the place. This is the same team that had Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon some time ago. So they've solidified themselves, obviously, as one of the most dominant racing teams in American sports history. But Kyle Larson having the most dominant performance of any athlete in 2021 by far. And if it was another sport, you would likely care more and you would probably know about it. Thanks for